Sergeant Jack "Iron" Reynolds had served with the Metropolitan Police Department for over 20 years, becoming a seasoned veteran known for his unwavering dedication and calm under pressure. He had seen the city through its darkest times, from violent riots to organized crime waves. But nothing could have prepared him for what was coming. The city had fallen into chaos over the last few months. A powerful and ruthless criminal syndicate, led by a mysterious figure known only as the Raven, had launched a full-scale assault on law enforcement. Police officers were being targeted, judges intimidated, and witnesses silenced. The streets, once safe under the watchful eyes of the police, were now war zones. Jack, now nearing retirement, had seen many of his colleagues fall victim to the Raven's reign of terror, but he refused to be intimidated. Even as his superiors suggested he take early retirement to protect himself, Jack knew he couldn't abandon the city he had sworn to protect. He had seen too much, lost too many friends, to walk away now. One evening, as Jack prepared to head home after another grueling day, he received a call from a young detective named Maria Sanchez. She had been working undercover, trying to infiltrate the Raven's organization. But now, she was in trouble. Her cover had been blown, and she was being hunted. Without hesitation, Jack grabbed his gear and raced to her last known location. He knew the risks. The Raven's men were ruthless, and they wouldn't hesitate to kill anyone who got in their way. But Jack also knew that Maria was a good cop, and he couldn't let her down. As he sped through the city, Jack thought about the years he had spent on the force, the sacrifices he had made, the lives he had saved, and those he had lost. He had always believed in the thin blue line, the idea that the police were all that stood between order and chaos. Tonight, that line was thinner than ever, and Jack was determined to hold it. Jack arrived at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place where no one would hear you scream. He parked his car a block away and approached on foot, moving silently through the shadows. The warehouse was surrounded by the Raven's men, heavily armed and alert. Jack knew he was outnumbered, but he had the element of surprise. Using his years of experience, Jack took down 2 guards silently, slipping into the warehouse unnoticed. Inside, the air was thick with tension. He could hear voices, angry, taunting. They had Maria, and they were trying to break her. Jack crept closer, staying hidden behind stacks of crates. Through a crack in the wall, he saw her, Maria, tied to a chair, bloody but defiant. 3 men stood around her, one of them holding a gun to her head. The Raven himself was nowhere to be seen, but Jack knew he had to act fast. Without hesitation, Jack sprang into action. He fired 2 quick shots, taking down the armed men before they could react. The third tried to run, but Jack tackled him to the ground, disarming him in a flash. In seconds, it was over. The men lay unconscious, and Maria was safe. Jack quickly untied her, checking for injuries. Maria was bruised and battered, but alive. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and gratitude. "I thought I was done for," she whispered. "Not on my watch," Jack replied, helping her to her feet. "Let's get you out of here." As they made their way out of the warehouse, Jack knew they were far from safe. The Raven's men would soon realize what had happened, and they would come for them. But Jack had a plan. He had called in a favor from an old friend in the SWAT team, and they were on their way. Just as they reached the exit, the sound of engines roaring filled the air. Jack and Maria turned to see a convoy of black SUVs speeding toward them. The Raven's reinforcements had arrived. The SWAT team arrived just in time, their armored vehicles blocking the warehouse entrance. A fierce gunfight erupted, with bullets flying in all directions. Jack and Maria took cover, returning fire as the Raven's men tried to close in on them. Amidst the chaos, Jack spotted a figure standing on a nearby rooftop, watching the battle unfold. Even from a distance, Jack recognized him. The tall, shadowy figure with the Raven tattoo on his neck. It was the Raven himself, overseeing the fight like a twisted puppeteer. Jack knew that taking down the Raven was the only way to end this nightmare. He signaled to Maria, and together they made their way toward the building where the Raven stood. The SWAT team provided cover, keeping the Ravens' men pinned down as Jack and Maria moved closer. They reached the building and quickly ascended the fire escape, their weapons drawn. As they reached the rooftop, the Raven turned to face them, a cold smile on his lips. "You should have stayed out of this, old man," he sneered. Jack raised his gun, his eyes locked on the Raven. "You're done, Raven. This ends tonight." But the Raven was fast, too fast. He pulled out a knife and lunged at Jack, the blade glinting in the moonlight. Jack barely had time to react, blocking the attack with his arm. The knife sliced through his jacket, drawing blood, but Jack didn't flinch. He had been in worse situations before. The two men struggled, their movements a blur of strength and desperation. The Raven was younger, faster, but Jack had experience on his side. He used every trick he knew, every move he had learned in his decades on the force. Maria tried to intervene, but the Raven was relentless, forcing Jack to the edge of the rooftop. Below them, the battle raged on, but up here, it was a fight to the death. With a final burst of strength, Jack managed to disarm the Raven, sending the knife clattering to the ground. The Raven snarled, lunging at Jack with his fists, but Jack was ready. He sidestepped the attack and delivered a powerful punch, sending the Raven stumbling backward. The Raven lost his footing and fell, his arms flailing as he tumbled over the edge of the rooftop. He caught himself on a ledge, dangling precariously above the ground. Jack stood over him, breathing heavily, his eyes cold and determined. "Help me," the Raven shouted, his voice filled with panic. Jack looked down at him, his face unreadable. "You chose this path," he said quietly. "Now you have to live with it." He turned away, leaving the Raven to his fate. As he walked back to Maria, he heard the Raven's final scream as he lost his grip and fell into the darkness below. The battle was over. The Raven's men, seeing their leader fall, quickly surrendered to the SWAT team. The city was safe once again, thanks to Jack and Maria's bravery. As the dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Jack stood on the rooftop, looking out over the city he had sworn to protect. His arm throbbed where the Raven's knife had cut him, but the pain was a reminder of the price he had paid to keep the city safe. Maria joined him, her face filled with admiration and respect. "You saved my life," she said softly. "You saved mine too," Jack replied with a smile. "This city owes you, Maria." They stood in silence for a moment, watching as the city began to wake. The streets, once filled with fear and violence, were now quiet and peaceful. Jack knew that his time on the force was coming to an end. He had fought his battles, faced his demons, and now it was time to pass the torch to the next generation. But as long as he had breath in his lungs, he would never stop fighting for the city he loved. And so, as the first rays of sunlight touched the rooftops, Jack Reynolds, the last watchman, walked away from the edge, ready to face whatever the future held. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more delightful stories.